Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 673. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. I'm also here to welcome you guys to spring.
Oh, is it spring now?
It is spring
It
now.
is spring.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice.
March
Happy spring.
Equinox has come. The plants are growing. The sun is shining. The clocks have changed. The rebirth of the season is upon us.
This
Great.
The last time the time changed, right, which was just like 2 weeks ago or so, week and a half ago, something like that, was the first time in my adult life that it came and went and I just didn't clock it at all.
Literally, you didn't clock it.
Literally didn't clock it. No pun intended. I didn't clock it.
You didn't notice the time change?
I didn't. And then like a few days after, somebody said something about it and I was like, when did that happen? Like I realized all my clocks, they just changed. Did we talk about this last week, Kyle?
I think we did, James.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm repeating myself.
But you know, sometimes he's got to let you go. Just let you get it out. So.
No. If they've already heard it, then
Okay.
they don't need my whole spiel. But yeah, was totally unaware. It just kind of happened around me. I thought we were getting rid of daylight savings. Isn't that like part of Trump's
No,
whole
you're
thing?
thinking of the Department of Education.
Oh,
It's
right,
easy to
right,
confuse
right.
those two.
We're getting rid of the things that matter, and the things
Yeah.
that don't matter, we're keeping. That's right.
Well, we're also getting corporate sponsorship for the Easter egg roll. So like, you know, Peeps or Cadbury can be out there hawking their stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's a new day in America.
Definitely. For sure. Well, yeah. Welcome to the podcast, guys, and welcome listeners to episode 673. We've got a little bit of like a former guest update, I guess. Luke, at the beginning of the Cinereelists, for those of you who
Has something
haven't listened for a long time, Luke in the early days of the podcast was our most frequent guest. He was on the podcast like 30 some odd times in the first couple hundred episodes, something insane. And he recently moved out to California, or he's going to anyway. I think this past weekend, maybe he was going. I don't know, Zach, you hung out with him more recently.
Yeah,
You
he's
remember?
gone.
He's gone. He's gone. He went out to California to pursue his dreams in entertainment.
Love it. Yeah.
And both Zach and I hung out with him in the past week just for the fun of it.
And it was awesome. Can I tell you about the gift he gave me?
Absolutely.
He gave me a personalized Guess Who board
Nice.
with like 5 different cards of like different movie related Guess Who characters and stuff.
Oh, cool.
That's pretty awesome.
So one Guess Who card was all Samuel L. Jackson, just in
Mhm.
different roles.
Right?
So that was awesome.
That's really cool.
That is great. He gave me a gift as well.
What did he give you?
It wasn't as thoughtful as yours, but it was pretty thoughtful.
Okay.
He gave me a fake Criterion Blu-ray of Ernest Goes to Jail.
That's amazing.
It is. It's pretty amazing.
So like he designed the cover and everything?
He designed the cover. He got a hold of a Criterion case, the clear plastic ones, and then put it in there, and then put the DVD inside.
That's pretty amazing.
It's pretty awesome. I enjoy it.
Did you
for
throw
sure.
it away because it's a DVD?
No. I don't throw away gifts that my friends give me, for sure. I'm going to get use out of it in a way that I'm not going to talk about here, but I will get use out of it.
Ernest Goes to Jail is the best Ernest movie.
Oh,
Mm.
disagree.
What,
I
you
don't-
think Halloween?
No, Halloween's the worst.
What?
Ernest Goes to Camp.
Yeah.
That
That's
one's
the best
good. That one's good,
It's
but it's
the
not
best.
Ernest Goes to Jail.
Ernest Goes to Jail is kind of dark, like with the death
Evil
row inmate
Ernest?
and everything, the
Yeah.
doppelganger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No,
it's
no,
pretty
no.
good.
It goes to camp, saves Christmas, slam dunk. That's
James,
the order.
I've already formed in my head what you're going to do with this Criterion DVD.
Okay. Well, don't say it here.
Okay.
I'm guessing you're probably thinking the same thing I was thinking.
Yes.
Maybe we'll talk about it in the after show.
Well, I have
Yeah.
no clue what you're going to do with this DVD, so I'm intrigued.
All right. Well, we'll
mystery.
in the after show we'll have Zach try to guess what I'm going to do with it, and I'm willing to bet he's going to get it bang on, but we'll see.
Yes, and I like it.
The other thing I did with Luke was we went to the T-Rex restaurant. Have you ever been there, Zach or Kyle?
I've not heard about this. Is this the one in Disney Springs?
Yes, it's at Disney Springs.
When I was in Orlando with my friend Gene and our kids, we were trying to get a reservation at T-Rex restaurant. It was booked out. So did you guys get a reservation or did you just show up?
No, we just showed up.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can't get a reservation, you can show up and wait like an hour to an hour and a half, and they'll get you in.
Great with kids under 10.
Yeah, I mean, we only had two people, so I'm sure the more you have, the longer you're waiting for the most part. But it was fun for two grown men in their 40s to sit in a T-Rex restaurant and reminisce and goof around. It was fun. Good times.
Are there animatronics?
Oh, are there?
Okay. Is this like the Rainforest Cafe on steroids?
I think it's literally the same people who made Rainforest Cafe made this restaurant.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And then like once every half hour, a big asteroid field shows up and everything rumbles and moves around, and
all the animatronics die.
Yeah. Everything burns to ash, and then humans show up. It's wild.
Yeah, that's how it worked. Asteroid hit, and then humans showed up.
Right. All right.
Like, it's our time to shine.
All right. Speaking of having a good time, you guys ready to start this episode?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Well, before we do, we need to remind everybody there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out there. You could also support us on Patreon, get those aforementioned after shows by supporting the podcast. You can also get other Cinereelists swag. Also, we need to never mind. We'll do it later. Leave us an Apple podcast review, 5 stars only. We'd appreciate that. You could also send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL with an S on the end. You can find links in the description to do any of those kinds of things. Also, it's been a while, but next week we will be doing a mailbag segment of the podcast. So if you have anything to say to us that you want us to read out loud on the podcast, or a question or any of those types of things, send it to us via email, and within a week you'll get an answer to that, basically. So heyguys@cinereelists.com, link in the description. You guys ready to talk Black Bag and Steven Soderbergh?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. Black Bag in theaters now. We're going to get into it right after this clip.
You are one naughty husband, George.
You asked how it works. To be with someone in this business, this is how. You each know what you know, and you know what you'll do, and you never discuss certain things again. I watch her, I assume she watches me. If she's in trouble, even of her own making, I will do everything in my power to extricate her. No matter what that means. You understand?
My God, that's so hot.
That was Black Bag, a 2025 American spy thriller film directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Koepp. This movie stars Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, Marissa Abela, Tom Burke, Naomi Harris, Regé-Jean Page, and Pierce Brosnan, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Black Bag is: when intelligence agent Catherine Woodhouse is suspected of betraying the nation, her husband, also a legendary agent, faces the ultimate test of whether to be loyal to his marriage or to his country. What did you guys think of Black Bag?
Well, I'll say I knew very little of this movie going into it. You guys brought up Black Bag, and I heard it was Soderbergh. I knew it was Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender. That was it. I didn't know it was a spy movie. I thought it was maybe a heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went into this movie completely blind, which is rather rare for me these days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to sit down in the theater and be like, I don't know what I'm going to be getting for the next 90 minutes. No clue what I'm going to be getting. And what I got, I liked, because this is my kind of spy movie. I'm a fan of Mission Impossible and like James Bond, and I guess you call Fast and Furious. They're kind of the spy action movies at this point too.
Mm-hmm.
But those are action movies first, and they're kind of spy movies second. And this movie is more in line with like things like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or The Spy Who Came in for the Cold, where it's a spy movie where it's all about the craft, and it's about information, and it's about what do you know, what does your enemy know, how are you reading people. And I think these movies are just so much fun personally for me to watch. I mean, there are movies where in this movie there are guns, things happen, but if a gun is shot or an explosion happens, everything's very purposeful. And that's the case in this too. There's not people just running around willy-nilly shooting guns at each other, you know, trying to like stop something from happening. So I really enjoy this kind of spy movie. At first, I was kind of hoping the whole thing was going to take place at that one dinner on the first day. Because I was like, oh, wouldn't this be great if it's like, we're all going to sit down at dinner and we're just going to spend an hour and a half talking it out till we figure out what's going on in this situation.
Like
and
Sleuth.
It didn't.
Like Sleuth.
Like Sleuth. Exactly like Sleuth. Yeah. And it didn't do that per se. There is a bit more. It takes place over the whole week, and there's, you know, people doing their own spycraft thing. But I do appreciate that it began and ended with that dinner. And like that dinner ending felt very Agatha Christie to me. Of like, it's like something Poirot would do. Like, let's get everyone at the table and let's sort of get all the information out. And this is why you could be the mole. This is why you couldn't be the mole. And then eventually the person will reveal themselves because of the tension of just like what's happening here. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty fun movie. Soderbergh, we're going to talk about him later, but he's just such a consistent, steady director. And I think this movie is completely in line with what I expect from him. Zach, what'd you think? Or James? Whoever wants to go first. Next.
I don't know what James thought.
All right.
Kyle liked it.
I did like it.
Wow. It sounds like Zach didn't like it, or he's misdirecting. Who knows?
Zach doesn't like old Pierce Brosnan. It upsets him.
Well,
it was cool that James Bond was in this.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan was in this, and he really didn't have to be in it for sure.
I mean, like that could have been anyone, but
yeah,
it was fun that it was. I appreciate it was him, though. Yes,
for sure. It's nice that he's still getting work. I enjoyed this as well. I'm not sure it's memorable enough for it to stick with me very long. Like I don't think it was anything super unique or like really extraordinarily different from other similar movies. It felt very much like a Soderbergh movie. Like he doesn't really do action all that much, and a lot of it is about like movement and dialogue and just like really solid common sense filmmaking, I would say. Soderbergh tends to come off that way for me. He's a little experimental here and there, but even in those experiments, it doesn't feel like he's going out on a ledge too often. He's doing things that he knows are going to work, type of thing. And I actually appreciate that about him, because I, like you, Kyle, I can't really think of a movie where I'm like, that was garbage, total waste of my time, type of thing. Like I haven't seen every movie by him, and maybe I'm avoiding the ones that people would say that about, but I've seen a good deal of them, and we'll talk about a bunch of them later on in this episode. But I felt like this was a solid thriller that entertained me for the, however long it ran. It was like
it's like 90 minutes, which I appreciated also.
Yeah, it did not feel overly long. I don't even know how long it was, but it felt as long as it needed to be. And I enjoyed the performances. Michael Fassbender was a little hard to like relate to in this movie, because he's just his character is so like non-emotional, I would say, by design of the character. And so,
well, James, he doesn't like liars.
Right. That's, if there's one thing we know about him, it's
that's one thing we know
for sure. But overall, as a movie that I had to drive to see, I wasn't upset. Didn't feel like a waste of my time. Which is a weird way to compliment the movie, but yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you, Zach?
Well, I saw this movie in the theater with Araya again, the one that was on for the Mickey 17 show, and he fell asleep during Mickey 17. He also fell asleep during Black Bag, so he's 2 for 2 right now.
Maybe it's just you.
Is this an Araya problem or?
Yeah.
But this is also a movie I had to drive for, and I would say I kind of loved this movie.
Okay.
All right.
I had a wonderful, fantastic time with this movie. I left extremely pleased. My first reaction was as I was leaving is like, it's so refreshing to have a movie told in an hour and a half. Like it's, it just felt so breezy. And I was like, this is great. You know, it's not like a 2.5 hour, deal, just an hour and a half and you're out. I really enjoyed the characters of this movie. I did like Michael Fassbender's character a ton. Like little details, like he got the tiniest little stain on his shirt when he was cooking, and it's like in a spot that no one else would see, but he's like, well, got to go change the shirt, like can't have that. And like that speaks to so much about his like level of like precision, and whatever. And I loved this idea of like the movie really plays with your trying to like toy if his marriage can be trusted or not. Like, are they on the same team, or are they rivals, or aligned to each other? I thought it did it really well, and kind of honestly it went about it. I really enjoyed all the side characters. There's kind of 4 side characters.
Yeah.
Other spies within, the British, Majesty's Secret
MI6,
Service.
I think it's called, or whatever.
Yeah. And they all had very distinct personalities, right? Like no one was a generic spy. They weren't all written the same. They were very different characters than each other, and I appreciated that. It looked like they were having fun with their roles.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just got a lot of cool spy, machinations. And I loved when Pierce Brosnan showed up, and it's like, oh, James Bond has been promoted now to where he's just leading meetings and, and stuff like that. And
James Bond is middle management.
That's how I've never seen Pierce Brosnan act like that. Right.
Yeah.
He acts like kind of like a stuffy old man rather than like a charming leading man, which I've seen him in everything else. So that was kind of fun to see him in a different role. And this movie was charming. I found it very charming. I really liked it. I enjoyed the ride, and it was good.
I really enjoyed the lie detector scene where he's kind of interrogating the 4 principal characters you were talking about. And it's just kind of cross-cutting between, and just that line of questioning of him being like, is your name Zach? Is it Tuesday? Are cows black? Did you steal the thing? And like you would just like slip in the question. And sure. I just try to catch him off guard and then go back to another innocuous questions.
Yeah.
I've never been in a lie detector. I don't know how they, if that's the way you rerun one, but I feel like that'd be a very effective way to like just ask completely benign questions and then just slip in the actual one.
I think it is, because if you didn't do the thing, it's not that stressful, right?
Yeah.
But it should look like kind of all the other questions. Like, no, I didn't steal the Mona Lisa. But if you did, you're like, oh, I gotta lie to him. Okay, I stole the Mona. I didn't steal, and then you're like, I hope he didn't find out. And although I think lie detectors are mostly like not true.
They're kind of junk science. I mean, we can't use them in court, right? That's at least
right. Yeah, I think they're mostly because people think they're real. That's what makes them real.
Yeah, they're easily beatable.
I don't know about easy.
Well, I mean, I would say it's easily beatable because you can train yourself to beat it.
Right.
So like, yeah, could I beat it right now? No, probably not. Could I learn how to beat it? Could anyone in this room learn how to beat it? Yeah, probably.
I mean, I think we all have the ability to learn, but I think depending on your personality type, I think there's some people that just can't focus enough or
Maybe
You know what
we
I mean?
should let's ask each other each a lot to lie to us, and then we'll tell if we can tell if they're lying or not.
we have a whole movie game around lying.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Movie bluff. Okay. Maybe we'll play that on Patreon. Yeah. So yeah, this movie was a lot of fun for me.
I had fun with it too. I just feel like it's a solid, right down the middle political thriller, which we don't really get that much. Normally we get
What would
like
you compare it
political
to?
thrillers, but it's a comic book movie. You know what I mean? Or political thrillers, but
Yeah.
it's an action film. Like Kyle was saying, it's not often where we just get like straight down the line dramas. That
Is there something you would most compare it to?
I mean, I threw out Tigger Tailor Soldier Spy earlier.
Yeah, but that one, I guess, doesn't seem as fun. That one's pretty dry.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so a more
This has the
fun.
Soderbergh, like, mirth to it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of a non-Mission Impossible, non-action spy movie. I want to call Munich fun.
Right. Not at all. I mean, Munich and
Yeah.
this have a very different sensibility.
Right.
James, what would you say?
Well, I did look it up. I didn't get this off the top of my head, but Bridge of Spies, The Good Shepherd. Do you guys remember that movie?
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
do.
Matt Damon.
Both of those
Yeah.
are pretty serious, though, aren't they?
I would say Bridge of Spies is a little bit more charming,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the word to describe it, because of Mark Rylance and because of Tom Hanks as like he's not a lawyer, right? Isn't Tom Hanks he's not a defense lawyer or whatever. He's kind of stepping into this role, so he's a little bit of fish out of water.
What about The Informant, which is also a Soderbergh
movie.
Yeah, that's leans much heavier on the comedy,
Mhm.
I would think. But yeah,
What about Hannah? I know Hannah's more action oriented.
I don't remember it well enough.
I
Is it funny at all, or is it just action?
It's just action. There's almost no humor in that
Okay.
movie, just because I watched it like a month or so ago.
Sure.
There's a movie called Charade. Maybe it's similar in sensibility too. It's
Oh,
like, yeah. Do you know Charade?
That's Audrey Hepburn, right?
Yeah, Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant,
Okay, great. Yeah.
and yeah, they're kind of sussing each other out.
Has anybody
That's a good
seen
movie.
2 Days of the Condor? 3 Days of the Condor?
3 Days of the Condor. I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Is anything
Yeah.
like it?
No, that's more of like a 70s political thriller.
Okay. Interesting.
So I'm gonna say I think this movie is fairly unique.
Would you call it a unicorn? Like the good kind.
Yes, I would absolutely call it a unicorn. Yes. Now, can I ask a question? The term black bag. First of all, I love this term. I'd never heard it before. Is this an actual term of art in the spy world? Have you heard this before, or
Like-
did the movie invent this?
I've never heard it before. I got the impression black bag meant like I can't talk about it.
Yeah,
Right. Like, this is
anything.
my secret.
Yeah, anything that was like you're not allowed to talk about, you just say is black bag.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard the term before. Is that a spycraft term? I wonder.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Googling black bag on the internet is very challenging because
Yeah.
Let's see. According to the AI overview, a black bag operation or a black bag job refers to a covert or clandestine entry into a building or office to obtain information.
Hmm.
So in this case, they say like, okay, this is the AI overview, which we can discuss how accurate that is. But that's more referring to black bag as being like an actual thing,
Mhm.
like an operation.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense. There was another James Bond alum in this movie. Someone who's been in at least 3 James Bond movies. And she was a primary character in this movie. Moneypenny, played by Naomi Harris. She was Moneypenny in Skyfall, Spectre, and No Time to Die.
Oh, is she the therapist?
Yes.
Oh, you're right.
She
Yeah.
played the therapist.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I did not make that connection whatsoever, but
Yeah.
I kind of liked that the other 4 were not big name actors.
hmm
It wasn't like, oh, that's Anna Kendrick, who's one of these, whatever. Like it was just 4 people who we've heard of before if you like how looked into them, but
hmm
You weren't seeing. I wasn't necessarily being like, oh, I can't believe they got so and so in that role or whatever.
Sure. Other than Pierce Brosnan, none of them were like lead actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Pierce Brosnan was. Oh, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
But the other four were not. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wish there had been at least one action scene, to be honest. There's like no action in it.
You got a drone explosion.
I was ready for it. Well, the one car, yeah, I guess. But
I don't think this kind of movie. I don't think this movie is that kind of spy thriller. We're not getting lots of action. We're getting the craft.
Yeah, these are not spies who are blowing things up. These are spies who are like lying to people and getting away with it, you know?
Right.
Yeah, but like one shootout, you know.
But that doesn't happen in real life. Like there's just not many CIA shootouts going on.
Sure. So you think in real life, things that happen in this movie actually happen?
I'm not saying that what happened in this movie actually happened, but I'm saying I think this movie is closer to what real spycraft is like than Mission Impossible or James Bond.
I think short of everybody coming to the same office every day, that's probably true. But I think most legit spies do not check into an office.
I think it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah,
in
there's
person.
different types.
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of them were analysts. I mean, one was a therapist. One was operates the satellite.
Sure.
I don't know what the guy did. The middle-aged guy.
That's true. They are all kind of analysts. Like I didn't get the vibe that any of them were like undercover spies.
Right.
Like
none of them are
Fassbender
undercover.
and Blanchett. I don't know if they're undercover, but they definitely have more fieldwork experience to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Although we didn't really get to see what Tom Burke did. He's the guy.
Which one's Tom Burke?
He's the guy who was
the drunk.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. He seemed to be like managing a team.
Yeah, and he was passed over for promotion.
Oh yes, but by the younger guy.
Sloppy.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you click on any of these people, you've seen them in movies, even though it felt like it was the first time I had seen a couple of them.
This movie is like, what if it was Mission Impossible, but every character was Simon Pegg? Not in humor-wise, but in like their job-wise.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Soderbergh definitely has a style with these like genre films that aren't big budget. They're somewhat serious, but also he does a good job of like making it brisk and injecting like relatable humor into it. He's certainly not the only director that can do it, but he seems to be the only one that has consistently done it for like nearly 30 years now. Like ever since the Ocean's films, he seems to have like hit the formula. Now, some might say the best one he ever did was the first Ocean's film. And he's just kind of been chasing that with this format a little bit here and there. But he seems to be pretty good at it, even when it's not 100% a home run. Written by David Koepp.
Is that name something I should know?
Well, I mean, he wrote the first Mission Impossible movie. He wrote a bunch of movies you've definitely heard of. I'm not sure if any of them are. Well, he also wrote Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, classic.
Right.
Was it his idea to have the monkeys?
I don't know.
Or was he in charge of the fire ants?
I don't know. But
did he write it, or he's one of like 20 writers on it?
I don't know. Probably. He also wrote Jurassic Park 2, Lost World. Sorry, Lost World, Jurassic Park.
He wrote the screenplay.
Right, not the book.
Right, because Crichton still wrote the book.
Right. He wrote Panic Room, Premium Rush, that classic.
Ghost World?
Ghost World?
Ghost Town? Ghost
Town? What is Ghost Town?
What's Ghost Town?
It's with Ricky Gervais where he sees ghosts, but I was thinking it's Ghost World.
Oh, you're thinking of a different movie.
Oh, he wrote Presence.
Okay.
Oh,
Interesting. Another Steven Soderbergh movie.
guys, should we do Presidents next week?
Yes, let's do Presents next week.
Okay, why not? Let's just make it a Soderbergh double feature over 2 weeks.
He also wrote Kimmy, which is not going to make my top 10, but it is a Soderbergh movie, and it's probably the best pandemic movie. Best like COVID-19.
Made during the
movie.
pandemic or about the pandemic?
Made during and about.
Okay.
I've
Who's
only
the
seen.
lead actress in Kimmy?
I forget off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I can know in 2 seconds. We're talking Zoe Kravitz.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
He was one of the Zoes.
His version of Kimmy is like a woman who is a hypochondriac. And so the pandemic happens and she's taking it very seriously. And then she sees a guy across the street in her, like, I don't know, 5-story brownstone type, building. So he sees a guy across the street and she starts communicating with him without knowing who he is. And then eventually they decide they're going to meet in real life. And the movie goes on from there, and it becomes kind of like a stalker thriller film, but it all takes place in her apartment with just 2 actors. Like you only see 2 people the entire movie.
Okay.
Other than some people walking around on the street. But it was good. Not like top 10 Soderbergh good, but way better than that other one about the heist that happened. Like the storyline was literally like COVID-19 lockdown was happening and then there was a heist.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That was bad. That was really bad. But Kimmy was worth it. Anyway, anything else with Black Bag that we need to say? Are you ready to give your final thoughts and your letterboxed rating?
Yeah, I'll give this 4 stars.
Kyle's going
4.5 for me.
4.5. I gave it a 3.5, but I could see it being a 4. Not completely out of the realm of possibility. 4.5 is, I don't know. I need a little more meat on the bones.
Yeah, I'll say I was between a 3.5, 4 going into this, so I settled on a 4. So it's not.
Sure.
Yeah.
What does it
I
need to
think
be?
4.5 is crazy. People talk, but whatever.
What does it need to be a 5, Zach? What's keeping it from?
Yeah, well, that's easy. So to be
Matt
a
Damon.
5, it has to be a masterpiece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be a masterpiece, you need to have 3 good scenes, 3 great scenes, and no bad ones. And I don't know if this had 3 great scenes, that like will stick with me forever.
Did it have any scenes that will stick with you forever?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The first dinner and how that ends.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that kind of went off the rails.
Yeah, that was great. And all because he like drugged them.
It was good. Very entertaining. Will not stick with me. There's not a chance.
You'll totally forget that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think for me, the dinner scenes were the standout ones.
Sure.
Those are the 2 that I'll remember. The fishing scenes seemed a little on the nose.
Yeah.
If I had a complaint about some heavy-handedness in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Sure. I could
One
see that.
character's out fishing and he catches a fish and then he's like, what do I do? And Michael Fassbender says, let's let him run for a while. I'm like, gee,
Mhm.
how big are these lines I have to read between here?
Nice. Okay, so a 3.5, a 4, and a 4.5 for Black Bag. Let's move on to our list for this week. A list that I had to check because I thought maybe we had already done this before, but turns out no. We're doing our top 10 films of Steven Soderbergh. He's made a lot of movies despite being somebody who retired. And we're going to rank them in order of preference. I'll go first. Number 10 from 2017, Logan Lucky, which is Soderbergh's, what would you call it? Ocean's 11, but with NASCAR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a white blue collar heist movie.
Sure. It's probably, well, Ocean's 11. Would you call Ocean's 11 a comedy? Or a
Yes.
comedic drama?
Yes.
It's not a drama. It's maybe comedic Action.
Okay. Fair enough. Logan luckily stars Channing Tatum, Adam Driver, Seth MacFarlane, Riley Keough, Katie Holmes, a bunch of people. The cast is very stacked, I would say, including Daniel Craig doing like a pre Knives Out Southern accent, which was weird the first time I saw it. I've only seen Logan Lucky once, and I think it was to talk about on this podcast. Didn't we review Logan Lucky?
We did.
Zach, yeah. And I remember not being like terribly impressed with it, but thinking it was a fun time. And I have some memories of the actual heist for sure, and thinking that it was odd but funny, and that I enjoyed the cast. But it has been a solid decade plus since I've seen it. And that's why it's at my number 10.
Nice.
All right.
I'll do
Go
my
ahead, Zach.
number. Yeah. My number 10 is Aaron Brockovich, which is just a good movie. Not a great movie, but a good movie. Definitely carried by the charm of Julia Roberts. But this is about like just normal working class woman who no one takes seriously because of the way she talks, the way she dresses. But she diligently is kind of working to uncover this scandalous, cover up kind of thing, environmental cover up. And I love it. I think it's a really great story. It's based on a true story, which Steven Soderbergh does sometimes. And I think it's a very solid movie.
I've never seen Aaron Brockovich.
Okay.
I feel like I know a lot of it. It was a big pop culture movie.
Totally.
So I could maybe get away with like what's the game we play? Two Truths and a Lie.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Film Bluff.
Film Bluff. I could
Movie
maybe get
Bluff.
away with Film Bluff, Aaron
Movie
Brockovich,
Bluff.
but never actually seen it. So James, you mentioned you've only seen Logan Lucky once.
Mm-hmm.
I would say every Soderbergh movie, with the exception of one, I've seen once.
Mm-hmm.
He's a director that I see his movies and I enjoy them. Like, he's pretty solid, but he's not a director that I go back to of like, oh yeah, I need to rewatch this movie that he made.
Mm-hmm.
I find that interesting. There's one exception. I'm sure it's going to be the same exception for all of us, but
Mm-hmm.
the rest of these are like, see them once, enjoy them, but kind of move on from them.
Sure.
So my number 10 is Side Effects. This stars Rooney Mara, Jude Law, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Channing Tatum. And it's about Rooney Mara is a woman who is prescribed some sort of psychoactive drugs to help her deal with things going on in her life. And these drugs cause her to, while using these prescription drugs, she commits a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to trial for this crime. And her defense is essentially, I'm not responsible for my actions because I was on these mind-altering prescription drugs. If anyone's responsible, it's my therapist, my doctor. And it's sort of a pulpy thriller about the side effects of these drugs that she's taking. And I would call this pulpy because if you've seen this movie, it is a little twisty, and it definitely leans heavier into the drama aspect and sort of like the who's telling the truth, who's lying aspect of this whole story. But it is strong performances from everyone involved. One of the last movies I can think of that had Catherine Zeta-Jones in that I've seen in a long time. I don't know what she's been doing for the last decade, but I can't think of any other movies she's been doing since Side Effects.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen her in much of anything lately.
She's still married to Michael Douglas, correct?
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't keep up with her. My number 9 is High Flying Bird, which is a Netflix movie. You can watch it right now on Netflix. They own it. It is a basketball movie. That's kind of like a Black Bag, where it's like a sports drama, but more about the behind the scenes machinations of the sport and not the basketball itself. So It's about a sports agent and a pro basketball player, and it's during an NBA lockout when the teams and the owners are, or the players and the owners are negotiating contracts, and there's a lot of like, you know, basketball politics, I would say, going on, and like scheming behind people's backs and trying to get the best deal. Lots of boardroom stuff and phone calls. Good dialogue, great acting. If you like movies like Moneyball or Draft Day or any of those types of movies, like this is definitely in that world. And it's Soderbergh, so it's well acted. There's a couple people you might recognize in the movie, but for the most part, they're just kind of there in a Pierce Brosnan kind of way. You know what I mean? They're not driving the story. Like most of the people that are driving the story will be people that you don't typically see in lead positions in movies. And the other interesting thing about this movie is it's the second movie he made with an iPhone. The first being Unsane, and then a year later, he made this with the iPhone 8. And this, I challenge anybody to watch this movie and be like, yep, this was filmed with a cell phone. Like it's kind of amazing what he does with a cell phone.
When we say filmed the cell phone, is he using the native camera, or is he using the phone as like a capture device and having all these peripheral things hooked up to it, like camera and sound and everything else?
Well,
or lens, I should say.
I don't know if he added a lens to it. I don't think he did that with Unsane. I don't know if he did that with this one. But
he's certainly using the camera on the phone. He's probably using an app on the phone, not the stock app.
Yeah.
So they can control exposure and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then they do add a lot of like additional hardware, like a monitor and stuff like that. But yeah, I've certainly seen productions where they don't add any lenses to the camera.
So they're using the phone camera essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For sure.
Interesting.
And then almost every film production is going to have external sound. Like they're not going to be using the cell phone sound.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's fairly normal.
I mean, even if they have like a really nice camera, they normally record externally.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't seen it, if you just want an easy watch and you're into sports dramas, check it out. High Flying Bird.
My number 9 is Logan Lucky, the aforementioned Logan Lucky. It's exactly Ocean's 11 with NASCAR.
Just not as
in
good.
a way that's fun, but yeah, that's good enough. It'd be higher on my list if I liked NASCAR more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My number 9 is Magic Mike. It stars Channing Tatum. This is the movie where he plays a male stripper at a club with other male strippers. And even though the kind of the main crux of the movie is it's about the world of male stripping, it's really a movie about like a guy trying to kind of pull himself up by his bootstraps and make a living for himself. In this case, the Channing Tatum character, he's just trying to like live the American dream. And the way he does that is through what he's good at, which in this case is taking his clothes off for money. It's got a great performances from everyone involved. Like Matthew McConaughey is this kind of sleazy, I wouldn't call a sleazy club owner, maybe a club owner who's a little too old to be doing what he's doing. Maybe the best way to describe it. He's great in it. There's a bunch of like side characters as other dancers. They're just a lot of fun. There's just a lot of world building going on in Magic Mike that I think, it's easy to say, oh yeah, this is the male stripper movie, but there's so much more happening in this movie besides just that. Maybe like Magic Mike XXL just kind of leaned into the nakedness of it all. I haven't seen that one, but I think the first one is pretty solid movie.
Sure, it's kind of
either of those.
kind of a straight comedy, the first one.
Yeah. It's not too serious about it.
Right. For sure.
No, I own it. I think actually, James, you gave it to me. I have it on Blu-ray on my shelf over here.
Right. Well, that was for Megan, but you can watch it too.
Sheila, if you have like a Harrison Ford or Kevin Costner male dance stripper movie, then she'll watch that for sure. So
okay, she likes the older men. All right.
Oh yeah,
fair enough. My number 8, The Girlfriend Experience from 2009. This movie stars Sasha Grey as a lady of the night. I don't know. She's a prostitute, high end, and she, you spend time with her. It's probably Soderbergh's closest to a mumblecore movie that I can imagine. Like, it's a movie that has a runtime, and it just kind of uses that runtime for you to exist with this person as she goes through life. Since it's set in 2009, they like integrated a bunch of like the economic downturn and like how it might have affected her business as well. And she just kind of does her job, goes from guy to guy, and you see her not necessarily do her work, do her like I don't know, being a companion to people. It's not even necessarily about the adult part of that business. It's more about the relational aspect of the business when it comes to like guys who will pay a high-end person to hang out with them for the weekend. You know what I mean? It's more than just the physical element. And it's an experimental movie, I would say. It's one that has very little plot to it. It's also interesting that with this movie, I think this was the first one where he just went all natural light. Like, they didn't light any scenes. They shot it very quickly because you don't have to do full setups. And some of the dialogue is improvised, not all of it, but more than he had done before then. And you can see that throughout other movies too. Like, a lot of the lighting, we didn't talk about this in the Black Bag discussion, but a lot of the lighting in Black Bag was also natural light. He hasn't said it's completely natural light, but a lot of the lighting and like the softness and like that is reflected in Girlfriend Experience as well. Just whatever happened. I believe they still set lights. Like, they made sure that like I'm just coming up with an example off the top of my head. I don't know if they did this exactly, but if they were sitting on a couch, he made sure that there was a table lamp next to them so that they would be lit, type of thing. But it's not like a light blasted in their face, a production light. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's interesting, especially within his filmography. I think Sasha Grey, who was legitimately an adult entertainer, who was kind of like plucked out of that to be in this movie, she was good in it as well. And yeah, I enjoyed it. My number 7.
Thanks.
Or
well,
8.
my number 7. My number 8.
Number 8, I believe we're on.
8. Sorry.
My number 8
I threw
is
you off.
Ocean's 13. Ocean's 13 is my number 8. And I have to be honest, I don't remember this movie very well. I do remember they had a scene where they had to like mess up a hotel room.
Mess up?
Like trash it.
Yeah, trash it. I don't remember super well, but I remember enjoying it, and I did give it 3.5 stars. And I want to rewatch it, and so I avoided like reading plot description to remind me of why I liked it. But I like it at this level at number 8, Ocean's 13.
All right.
Do you remember Matt Damon's nose?
I do remember him having a nose. Did he wear a prosthetic?
His character did for like a part of the heist, I think.
I think George Clooney had like a mustache, right?
Kyle doesn't
I've
remember
seen,
it either.
I did not include Oceans 12 and 13 on my list because I remember them so little.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just like, well, these other ones I can at least talk about a little bit. Oceans 12 and 13, I've seen them. Matt Damon's got a large nose for a scene in one of them.
Okay. Was it 12 or 13 where they're in Europe?
It's 12.
Okay. Then I don't remember anything about 13.
13 was back in Vegas.
Back in Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, my number 8's a movie that I remember just a little bit more, but not as much more, because we did do it for the podcast. And this is No Sudden Move. If you remember, this is kind of like a crime movie starring Benicio del Toro and Don Cheadle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a period piece. It maybe took place in like the 60s or 70s, maybe in Detroit. I don't really remember what the crime was about. I feel like these guys were small time crooks who got kind of pulled into a much bigger scheme than they were planning, and sort of everything kind of falling down around them. What I do remember is this movie brought back Brendan Fraser for me. I had not seen Brendan Fraser in a movie in a long time, and he has, I won't call it a cameo. He has one scene in this movie. Be like, oh yeah, that's right, Brendan Fraser still around, still acting. Kind of cool to see him back.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, we've talked about James. You kind of mentioned Soderbergh being experimental sometimes in his camera work. This one was shot with a weird fisheye lens the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that really stood out to me, and I wasn't sure why he used that lens per se. It's memorable, but not explainable per se.
Yeah, it's like not really a part of the story.
Yeah,
at all. But for some reason, he did it.
He's just there. Yeah, he made a choice and stuck with it the entire way through.
For sure. My number 7 from 2011, Haywire, which I need to rewatch. I think I saw twice around the time of release, and it stars Gina Carano, I think is how you say her name. Yeah, Gina Carano. She's some kind of spy or agent, and she becomes persona non grata by her employers, and so she spends the rest of the movie figuring out why and just basically running from other assassins who want to kill her. It's maybe Soderbergh's only true action film, because it's got a lot of action in it from beginning to end. It also stars Michael Fassbender and Channing Tatum, which Channing Tatum is in a lot of Soderbergh movies.
Yes, he is.
I don't think I realized that until I was looking at the list, and I was like, man, Tatum and Soderbergh, they work together a lot. I enjoyed this. It's definitely feels, from my memory, it feels like a guy who typically does dramas without action, trying to do action. So it's like all the action scenes only take place in single locations. You know what I mean? Or like one spot of the road. There's not a whole lot of like chasing and stuff like that. It's more like, let's have a fight scene in a hotel room. Now let's have one in a cafe. Now let's have one, here or there. It's just like very specific. They very rarely move from one location to another over the course of an action set piece type of thing. I remember enjoying that. Also, like David Holmes doing the music, the guy who did all the Ocean's movies and a bunch of his other movies. Like, I remember it having an interesting kind of jazzy soundtrack in a weird way. And might be hard to revisit now just because Gina Carano turns out to be not a very nice person in reality. But I'll rewatch it at some point.
I'm sure she will get a cabinet position very soon, though.
Probably.
So I don't know. Should be like Secretary of the Department of Energy or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my number 7 is already been mentioned. It's Side Effects from 2013. This is that Rooney Mara, Jude Law, Catherine Zeta-Jones movie. Mm-hmm. And also has Channing Tatum, as James pointed out, is in a lot of these movies. This movie is definitely pulpy. I think that's a great way to describe it. It's kind of cheap thrills, but I liked it. It was good. It's like, what if you can't trust your therapist? Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's I like that. I like that plot.
Yeah, it's fun. Since you mentioned Catherine Zeta-Jones, and since she actually did do a lot of movies with Soderbergh, I was looking at her filmography on Letterboxd, and yeah, she did Side Effects, Red 2, a movie called Dad's Army in 2016, and then she was in something called Cocaine Godmother in 2017, and then there's nothing after 2017.
Wow. Okay.
So I feel like Side Effects was her last big role, maybe Red 2. And then she just sort of, whatever reason, stopped.
I mean, maybe she made her money and she's done for now.
Yeah.
She is in Netflix's Wednesday show as Morticia Addams.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
it's a very popular show.
I should note that I'm looking at Letterboxd, which is just movies. So
maybe she transitioned to TV in general. Or was it just Wednesday?
Is that or just is on a show?
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right, my number 7 is the previously mentioned Logan Lucky, and not a ton to add. It's a fun movie. It's a heist. Daniel Craig's doing a weird accent, but it grows on you.
That's a bingo.
They're sort of like if Ocean's 11, these are like the smoothest, coolest, best at doing their jobs. Logan Lucky, like these are guys, they're lucky for a reason.
Right.
They're not the smartest, the bravest, the quickest.
Sure. Agreed.
Extra lucky.
Yeah.
My number 6 from the year 2000, the aforementioned Aaron Brockovich, which I had not seen until yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd never seen it. I was trying to fill some Soderbergh holes, and that was one of them. And it's like one of his most acclaimed. So, I mean, why wouldn't you see it at this point? I feel like I've put it off long enough. 25 years is long enough to procrastinate on a movie. And I get it. It's a super charming movie starring a super charming actress. What I liked about Aaron Brockovich is most of the people on screen, at least the people driving the story, are all well-intentioned. It's like they all kind of have their flaws and their complications, but they're all generally good people. You know, some of you might argue like the corporation they're going against and stuff like that is, you know, bad people, but the movie doesn't really follow them or focus on them. It's more like Aaron Brockovich, a mother who's trying to do her best with a bad situation, claws her way out of it and figures out how to better the people around her at the same time. And whenever they introduced a character that you might typecast in the back of your brain, over the course of the film, you learn more about them and you learn that like there's more to them. And, you know, don't read a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover type of scenario. Also did not know Aaron Eckhart was in this movie.
Oh.
And while the movie was playing, I was like, I know that guy because he does not look like what I think about when I think about Aaron Eckhart. And then at the end of it, I looked it up and I was like, wow, he was really young in this movie. And it was fun to just kind of watch a movie not knowing a major actor was in it and then not even place him until the end. But yeah, I understand why Julia Roberts was nominated and won an Academy Award for this because it definitely rests on her shoulders mostly. I laughed throughout it. I was charmed by it. I enjoyed it. My number 6.
Nice. My number 6 is not been mentioned yet. I'm sure it'll be mentioned in the future on some of your lists. It's Traffic from 2000. Traffic at the time blew my mind, right? In 2000, when I saw Traffic, I had seen very few movies like this, where it's like super serious, multiple stories that kind of intertwine, showing how just depressing the real world is, you know? And movies like Requiem for a Dream kind of did this same kind of vibe, and it fit in there with me, although it's less like experimental as Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like subject matter and how it, you know, Crash was kind of like a later version of Traffic.
Yeah.
It just follows like the effects of drugs from multiple perspectives, or the war on drugs more accurately. Starring Michael Douglas, Catherine Zeta-Jones. Did they meet on this film? That might have been when they got together.
Maybe.
Benicio del Toro's in it. Don Cheadle's in it. Another Steven Soderbergh alum.
Yeah, Don Cheadle's on a lot.
Yeah. And this movie's great. It's really, I mean, serious, but like effective and affecting. And I liked it a lot. So.
Great pick.
Traffic.
My number 6 is probably another classic Soderbergh that I did not catch until a couple years ago during the pandemic, and that's 1998's Out of Sight, which is probably not his breakout movie, but maybe his put him on the map movie.
It depends. He's had levels for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a big one for him early in his career.
Yeah.
This movie stars George Clooney as I believe he's a jewel thief or of some sort. He's a a career criminal. And he is being tracked by an FBI agent played by Jennifer Lopez. During one of their, I guess, an operation, they have a meet cute and they kind of fall for each other. And this movie is sort of them wrestling with the cat and mouse aspect of she's chasing him because he's breaking the law. She works at the FBI, but also there's like a connection. There's something going on there. And the movie kind of plays with that relationship throughout. So it's definitely like I'm not a sexy thriller, but there's definitely like a will they, won't they aspect going on throughout this movie. Can these two people on opposite sides of the law sort of find common ground for romance? So it's all about the relationship between those two, and they're both charming people. They play very well off each other. I also remember there being like an actually good heist in the movie too. I can't remember much about the heist, but I remember watching this and being like, oh yeah, that's right. Soderbergh can also make heist movies. You know, this is pre Ocean's 11, but even this movie has a cool heist in it while also having this cat and mouse, will they, won't they relationship going on.
Nice. It's not on my list, but only because I saw it so long ago. And the only thing I remember about it is, don't they get locked into a trunk at some point?
Yes.
Both
together.
of them?
Yep.
Yeah, they get locked in together. For some reason, I have a memory of that, but nothing else. My number 5 is from 2018. It's Unsane, which is probably Soderbergh's most twistiest movie, in my opinion. Like if you were going to say, what if Steven Soderbergh made an M. Night Shyamalan movie? It would be Unsane for sure.
Okay.
It would be Unsane. Early Shyamalan. It's about a girl who is stalked by a stalker, and she wakes up in an insane asylum, and she's like trying to get out of the insane asylum. Is probably not a very politically correct way of saying
mental hospital.
Sure. Exactly that.
Psychiatric hospital.
It's definitely not a horror. It's a horror movie in that what's happening to her would be horrific, but you know, there's no slashers in it or anything like that. It's more thriller type stuff. But she wakes up, she's in this mental hospital where she can't check herself out, right? Like she has to prove that she's not mentally unwell in order for them to release her. And so she's kind of walking around the compound and interacting with the staff and other people who are there and trying to get people to listen to her, because she's like, I don't know what happened. I just woke up and I'm here. Like I was having a problem with this guy following me around, and then all of a sudden I'm here. I don't, you know, and they're like, did that happen to you? You know, type of thing. Nobody believes her type of thing. And I enjoyed this a lot. It's another movie he shot on an iPhone. This is a movie where you watch it and be like, yep, I can not necessarily tell, but you would understand the style of filmmaking makes sense. You know what I mean? That they shot this on an iPhone type of thing.
Is it all shot vertically? Is that why?
No, it's not a vertical thing. It's just, I don't know. You'd have to see it. But it's a good one, especially if you like genre films. And this is probably the farthest out of the Soderbergh comfort zone of any of the films that made my list. I know there's other experimental movies that he made like in the 80s and early 90s that I just haven't seen, like Bubble and like some of the other ones that people don't necessarily talk about these days, but were kind of revolutionary for the time. But this one, I enjoyed. It's very different, but very well constructed. Unsane, my number 5.
Cool. Well, my number 5 is Contagion from 2011. And I like this movie even before COVID and before how prescient as it was. But yeah, this movie, first of all, has just a stacked cast. Soderbergh can really stack a cast. Like for whatever reason, he can make these projects that have to be so expensive for the cast alone. I don't know how he does that. But Marion Cotillard, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Kate Winslet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bryan Cranston, Elliot Gould, amongst others. It's the story of a virus that starts with one person and quickly spreads across the whole world and basically changes daily life for everybody on the planet.
Starts on a
And,
wet market in China, right?
but probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
does with the pigs.
yeah, I think it does. Yeah. It's really well made, super well made. Everything, every step in the process feels both terrible and totally plausible. And so it like basically you just watch the dominoes fall as like civilization falls, and it's very competently done, very sad, and also like totally possible. It's crazy, but it's really good, and I think it holds up well.
Nice.
I've not watched that movie since the pandemic, and I'm really curious to see.
Did you watch it in the pandemic?
No, I couldn't bring myself to. I know a lot of people did, and I thought about it, but
Yeah.
I played the game Pandemic during the pandemic. That
Okay.
was the closest as I got.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. All right, my number 5 is previously mentioned. I feel like at this point we're doing a lot of previously mentions,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Haywire. This is the Gina Carano action movie. And you talked about stacked casts, right? This is probably one of his smaller budgets, but the supporting cast of this movie: Channing Tatum, Michael Douglas, Antonio Banderas, Ewan McGregor, Bill Paxton, Michael Fassbender. Right? Like, that's a crazy depth for a pretty small action movie, as you mentioned, James. What stood out to me with this movie is Gina Carano is a former MMA athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So she has all this training in various forms of martial arts, judo, jiu-jitsu, striking, and all of that is on display in this movie. So the choreography is great. The action scenes feel very real. There is jiu-jitsu mixed into it, which I always appreciate seeing. And there's not a lot of acting being put on the shoulders of Gina Carano. It's much more of, you have the other people are kind of acting around her, and she's sort of responding. And usually most scenes end up breaking out in violence. So yeah, I think if you want to see some like pretty solid action, this is a couple of years before John Wick. And I think this was a little premonition to where we were going with our action movies. Kind of John Wick sort of picked up the torch from here. I think Steven Soderbergh was a little in front of that with Haywire.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
That was a movie that almost made my list. It's not going to be on my list, but I really enjoyed that movie as well.
Yeah, it's fun.
My number 4 is a TV movie, which I don't typically put on these lists, but I did this time. Behind the Candelabra from 2013.
Oh, yeah.
This is an adaptation of a book called Behind the Candelabra, My Life with Liberace. And it's about Liberace, the musician who was he closeted gay? I doubt it. In that he didn't talk about it publicly. He was.
Yeah. Yes, I believe in that sense.
Right. But I think most
he was not
people,
openly gay.
Most people kind of open secret, kind of knew type of
Correct.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, it's about him and his longtime boyfriend and other people who were in his orbit. And HBO paid for the movie to be made. $23 million I'm seeing, which is crazy for a TV movie. Stars Michael Douglas and Matt Damon. Dan Aykroyd's in it. Rob Lowe is kind of amazing in the movie. And kind of revelatory if you just know Rob Lowe as like the guy from Parks and Rec and, 80s teen dramas. And it's really well acted. It's kind of dark because not everything goes Liberace's way, as well as the people in his orbit. Kind of harsh things happen to him over the course of his lifetime. And also he seemed like a guy who enjoyed being wealthy and well-loved and kind of took advantage of those things for better or for worse over the course of his life. And I just think it's a very solid drama that's really well acted and covers a decently wide amount of time. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. My number 4.
James, it's funny that you described this as a TV movie, which is true. And the fact that like HBO paid $20 million to make this in 2013.
Mhm.
Because back then we were like, why is HBO paying for a movie? And now a decade later, like you
They're
can call
all-
The Gorge a TV movie, right?
Right.
Like everything, the Apple TV and HBO, like we don't call them TV movies anymore. They're just movies on different platforms.
Sure. Now it's totally normal. I mean,
It's totally normal.
back then HBO made movies too. Like they were making movies for their channel back then too.
But I remember this movie being a big deal because it was the budget and it was Matt Damon and Michael Douglas, and
Right.
it wasn't like your normal well of TV movie actors.
At the time, it was hard to understand why it wasn't a theatrical release.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. My number 4 is Black Bag.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Contagion. Not a ton to add to this one. Yeah, this is if I was to say if any Soderbergh movie felt like the most like a procedural, I think this one feels the most like a procedural because you really are kind of going through the steps of like pandemic, collapse, and then rebuilding from there and how everyone responds. And I remember seeing this movie and being hopeful in the fact of like, oh yeah, if there is some world-changing global virus, like it'll be bad, but people will rationally respond and get their vaccines and do what they need to do to return to normalcy. And then we've seen that's not what happens whatsoever. So I feel like I wish I lived in the world of Contagion
Mhm.
where people are happy to get clear of the virus and move on with their lives and not. I think this movie missed the political aspect of a pandemic that maybe we couldn't anticipate when it was made.
Yep. I agree. My number 3 is the aforementioned Traffic from the year 2000. I don't have much to add beyond what Zach said. This is probably the first time I saw kind of like a procedural about the drug trafficking business. It, for some reason in my brain, this one and Sicario are like the two that fight for supremacy in the back of my head when it comes to that subject. I mean, maybe I haven't heard him say this, but I wouldn't be shocked if Denis Villeneuve had seen Traffic and I don't know, it inspired him in some way with Sicario because they feel like similar movies, not exactly the same, but similar. Also, this is one of the rare movies where it won director, actor, and screenplay, but didn't win Best Picture, which is crazy.
What won
For
Best
its
Picture in
year.
2000?
I don't remember,
I'm trying to think.
but I'll
That
find
wouldn't
out
have
for you.
been Shakespeare in Love.
Probably not. No, that stole the award from Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm almost there. What year are we talking? 2000?
2000. It could be under the 2001 Oscars because it's weird how they named them.
Gladiator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Both Aaron Brockovich and Traffic were up in the same year for Best Picture.
Wow.
Neither one. Probably split the vote, to be honest.
Yeah, very well could be. I'm not mad at Gladiator winning over Traffic.
I would have preferred Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon over all of them.
Oh yeah.
That was a good one. Zach?
Zach, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Ocean's 11.
Oh,
Ocean's 11.
interesting.
Perhaps might be controversial, except I love Ocean's 11. So how do you fault that? It's a fantastic movie. I probably, this is the Soderbergh movie I've seen the most of any other movie. I've probably seen Ocean's 11 maybe 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
This got a lot of play in high school. And it's well crafted. It's super fun. The editing is just very playful. It's such a confident cinematic film, and it's a lot of fun to watch. The acting is all great. The characters are great. There's a ton of characters, but they all have their place. They all, belong. There's no fat in the movie. It covers a lot of bases. There's like humor and romance and action and heists, and I love a good heist and I love a good twist, and it's great. So Ocean's 11 is a lot of fun.
Zach, Ocean's 11 came out December of 2001 after we had graduated from high school.
Okay.
So what high schools were you hanging out around when you're watching this movie?
I believe my high school got a 3-year advance copy of this film.
You mean my high school?
Yeah, your high school
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
Our high school got a 3-year advance copy.
Mhm.
A lot of play. Did this really come out after high school?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for me, this was a college movie. This was like a DVD staple in college. This is one of the
Interesting.
first DVDs that I owned.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah. All right, this is my number 3, which is not Ocean's 11. It would have been a perfect segue, but it's not. My number 3 is Black Bag.
Wow.
Nice.
Awesome. My number 2 is from 2011, Contagion.
That's a bingo.
Which, again, I don't have much to add that Kyle and Zach haven't already covered, other than this movie is the only one I can think of that captured the anxiety that I felt in the pandemic that we experienced over the last 5 years now, of just kind of being fearful of being around other people. Like that's a big theme in this movie, especially with the Matt Damon character and his daughter. Like just the idea that like, even if people aren't necessarily trying to kill you, just the act of being around them could kill you. And the paranoia, the idea that like trying to fight fight the virus itself puts you in danger type of thing, because you can't just sit at your house and fight it type of thing. I mean, the things that didn't really explore is like the fact that we tried to make society function as normal. We just moved everybody to home for a little while type of thing. Like there's no real element of that. And the political element that you guys mentioned is kind of missing from the storyline. But yeah, as like kind of paranoid thrillers go, I think it was bang on when I saw it in 2011. It like put a new fear in me. Not one that's like prevalent that I think I've thought about a lot. And then when we were going through it 4 years ago, I was like, holy crap, this is like almost exactly how Contagion played out.
Yeah.
And then I saw Contagion in the middle of the pandemic and I was like, it's close, but it's still a movie. You know what I mean? It has some fantastical things in it compared to what we actually went through. Also, the virus in Contagion was much worse than what we actually experienced in real life. If it had been as bad as what was portrayed in Contagion, I would hope people's attitude towards it would have been different than what we experienced, but maybe not. Who knows? I mean, if you literally had neighbors like dead in their front lawns, you know what I mean? Maybe people would have taken it a little more seriously, but maybe not.
I don't want to get into the politics of COVID,
Sure.
but yeah, maybe.
All right. My number 2 is Ocean's 12.
I was going to jokingly say that you like Ocean's 12 better than Ocean's 11. And
Here we
that's
are.
not ironic. Wow. Here
I
we are.
do like Ocean's 12 better than Ocean's 11.
That's weird.
It's the worst one.
It's uncommon. I would say it's as uncommon as James liking Temple of Doom better than any other Indiana Jones movie. So I would hope that he could understand in some small capacity.
It's fine.
Ocean's 12, I think, is a lot funnier than Ocean's 11, especially Matt Damon's character. I think is really funny in Ocean's 12. And we still get a lot of the same breezy action, the same montages, the same fun, heisty stuff, playing around with like Bruce Willis's character and stuff. I think Ocean's 12 is a lot of fun. And where Ocean's 11 gets all the love, and again, I've seen it so many times, Ocean's 12 still feels really fresh to me and really fun. And I think it's superior in some ways. So that's why it gets a higher spot than Ocean's 11.
All right. I accept your argument.
Yeah.
My number 2 is the previously mentioned Traffic. there's a strong chance, Zach, that you and I saw this together in the theater
Yeah, very good
way
chance
back
of that.
when.
Very
Because
good chance
I
of
remember feeling the same way of being like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
Like it being really ground. I mean, we were 16 or 17 when it came out. Yeah, so like definitely a movie experience has sat with me. I haven't watched this movie very often because it is a bit of a downer. It's not, like a happy movie. It's about the drug traffic trade, but it felt like a really important movie at the time. And, it was definitely unique in that aspect. I do wonder, did this movie give us the trope of anytime you shoot something in Mexico, it's through like a yellow filter?
I believe it
Which-
did. Yeah.
Like 25 years later, we're still doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When it's
And
like you go to Mexico, it's like not that at all.
Yeah, right. I know people. I know like Mexico is like it's not yellow here. Like we have blue sky and we have colors, but
Mhm.
because of this movie, everyone shoots Mexico like it's yellow.
For sure. I don't know if it's the first movie to do that, but it definitely popularized it because it was a very popular movie.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Hey, can we just? Am I frozen? Is my image frozen?
Yep. As long as
Yeah.
your OBS is still not frozen, we should be
Let me
okay.
check my OBS. No, my OBS is frozen also.
Okay.
How do I unfreeze this camera?
It's unfortunately frozen too.
This is a really unfortunate image for it to be frozen on.
I love it. I'm going to keep this in.
I hope you would just like drop me out at this point and not leave this image up the whole time on YouTube.
I don't know. I kind of like it. All right. My number one is Ocean's 11. Shocking.
That's a bingo.
Yeah. Super fun movie. Fast pace. Funny. Interesting heist movie with like a cast that was insane at the time. Still kind of insane. Like I don't feel like we get movies with the type of cast like we did back then. Although, we just don't have as many movie stars anymore, I guess. But if you can like try to think of like young Hollywood, right, as it currently exists, I don't think there's like enough names to really make a movie like this anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe give them like another 10 years for people to grow up a little more and they might be in the age range where they could pull it off. But anyway, yeah, I love this. One of my favorite things about the movie is the energy behind it. The fact that it like never slows down. Everybody has just enough screen time to make sense and also keep the storyline going. Somehow there's like 11 people in the movie and yet all of them feel distinct and have their own personalities and their own objectives and their own reasons for being in the movie. And then you combine that with the soundtrack to Ocean's 11, another score by David Holmes. And this is like one of the few soundtracks that I revisit every 5 years or so and just listen to on my own because it's good working music. It's fun to listen to. Reminds me of the movie, but also kind of the score itself exists on its own as a thing that I enjoy. And that's kind of rare for me. Yeah, I think it's probably weirdly his masterpiece over everything else. Traffic is probably his most respected movie, but to me, Ocean's 11 is the one that I will go back to over and over and over again.
Great movie. Great movie. My number one favorite Steven Soderbergh movie is Full Frontal from 2002.
Never seen it. I debated watching it before we recorded this, and I passed on it. Tell us about it, Zach.
So another stacked cast. It's got David Duchovny, Catherine Keener, Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt, Jeff Garlin, Terrence Stamp, David Fincher's in it. A lot of people are in this. Yeah.
The director, David Fincher?
Yep. The director, David Fincher. Rainn Wilson's in it. January Jones is in it. It's about Hollywood. It's another group of like different stories all interwoven together, right? So we're jumping around between different stories. My favorite story is with David Hyde Pierce. He gets laid off for his job because he drinks beer out of a glass instead of out of the bottle. And Jeff Garlin plays like a Harvey Weinstein stand-in.
Mhm.
And it's a movie about Hollywood from a lot of different perspectives. And there are, you know how I said a masterpiece has no bad scenes and 3 great ones?
Yeah.
Well, this movie has 3 great scenes. It has 3 scenes that absolutely stand out to me as being like, that was unexpected and cool. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. And there's nothing about this movie that I object to. So I'm a huge fan of this movie. It's not one that is generally well received. It has a 2.8 on Letterboxd. I guess I don't understand. I think this movie's really great. And it's got a lot going for it. It is indie, like it's not going for mainstream success. That's for sure.
Mhm.
It's definitely like an artist, being experimental. Yes, there's a genre film like Iranian neorealism where this guy Makhmetov, I'm saying his name wrong, I'm sure, but he would make these films where I think one of his most famous is a guy had committed a crime against another person. And so he makes a documentary about that crime, but he has the real guy and the real victim portray their roles in the documentary. And you get this really fascinating meta truth that emerges from having these reenactments made by the real people kind of a thing. And I think that inspired Full Frontal a little bit. It's an interesting, cool little film. So I enjoy it, and it's well acted. It's got obviously a lot of great actors in it. So Full Frontal is a movie I recommend. I don't know why it's called that. I have no idea why it's called that.
I always thought it was about nudity.
It's not.
I was reading the Wikipedia when I was considering watching it, and I think it was like a last second name change.
Okay.
Evidently, Harvey Weinstein didn't like the original title, and right before release, they changed it to that.
Did they say what they changed it from?
They did. I don't remember off the top of my head, but if you look at the Wikipedia, it's in there somewhere.
Did Weinstein produce a lot of Soderbergh movies?
His early ones, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm looking at Ocean's 11, and he did not produce that one.
Yeah, I think his independent features, he has his fingers in those, but then by the time he's releasing major studio films, by then he was out of the loop with Weinstein.
Okay.
It's Miramax billed it as an unofficial sequel of Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Okay.
Unofficial sequel. Okay.
That's another one that I watched yesterday because I had never seen it, and it's his first film, and kind of broke him out.
It was originally called How to Survive a Hotel Room Fire, but then 9/11 happened, and so they changed the title.
Okay, so there was a reason given other than Weinstein just being a jerk. Because around that time in the 90s and early 2000s, he was kind of known as somebody who would push around filmmakers and make them make changes to their movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
All right.
that was fun.
I could do my number one if you want.
Nope, we're done.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for listening.
I forgot you were here. I can't see you. So, Kyle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here, tell me if does this make it better? Would you prefer that?
Yes, I would prefer that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just suffer through that.
All right. Fair enough. What's your number one?
My number one is Ocean's 11. Which I really thought we were going to triple bingo that one at number one. So Zach, you surprised me on this one.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I agree with James. I think this is Soderbergh's masterpiece. It is him doing what he does best. It is large cast. It's procedural. It's drama. It's funny. It's very cool and smooth. It all kind of clicks together. I mean, this movie's kind of like clockwork. Where they kind of kick the ball off and then it just sort of goes through all the steps. But it's super fun to watch these steps unfold because as an audience member, you don't exactly know what's going on. And I think that's kind of nice about this heist movie. Sometimes heist movies tell you exactly what's happening. and you're just kind of watching it unfold. And if it's a good heist movie, you're down with that. But this movie doesn't always tell you what's happening, so you're kind of a little in the dark, as much as Andy Garcia is. And so there's some surprises happen throughout this heist. I mean, you also have like just the coolest guys in the era, George Clooney and Brad Pitt. I mean, could you have gotten bigger stars to just be effortless in this movie? And you know, Matt Damon's in this. Matt Damon's he's played a bit more of a comedic role. Like you mentioned, Zach, he gets more comedic throughout the series, but he was a huge star. But you're also getting guys like Elliot Gould and Carl Reiner in this movie, so it's not just, you know, who's big and hot at the time. It's a real mixed cast, and it's great.
I mean, Julia Roberts too was like just coming off a Best Actress win. Oscar.
That's a good point.
I mean,
Yeah, she was huge at the same time.
She was huge at the time.
Right, 'cause she's also doing like Runaway Bride and My Best Friend's Wedding in Notting Hill around the same era. So yeah, this is probably the peak for her. Yeah, it's fun. I watched this with Galen a couple weeks or months ago, and he thought it was a blast.
Nice.
Young Casey Affleck's in it.
Mm-hmm.
So great.
Bernie Mac, rest in peace.
Bernie Mac.
Maybe the only movie I saw Bernie Mac in that I can think of. I don't know.
You never saw Mr. 3000?
Can't say I did see that.
Neither did I.
Oh, he was in Bad Santa. I saw that.
Yeah, he was the mall owner or whatever, right? He ran the mall.
Maybe. I don't know. Oh, he was in Friday too. I saw that.
I don't remember him in Friday.
I've seen him in a lot, evidently. Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle. Transformers. He was in Transformers. Don't remember that, but okay. All right. Well, that was our review of Black Bag and our rundown of our top 10 films of Steven Soderbergh. Thank you for listening to this episode 673 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, you can always find the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Leave us an Apple Podcast review. That one's free. Will only take a minute. If you haven't done that, do it now. Or you could send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Links are in the description for any of those things. You could also find us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Cinereelists. Or you could find me on my personal Sky Blue or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shoppin.
Find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
Next week, we're going to keep the Soderbergh ball rolling and discuss his other movie that's in theaters now, his ghost thriller, I would say, titled Presence. And then we're going to answer some listener email. So again, if you want to send us an email, now's the time. We will talk about it most likely next week if you send it right now. So any comments, questions, list suggestions, any of those kinds of things, send it to us via email. And with that, we'll see you guys next week. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.